Hey guys, it's Katie with scrappinkaty.ctmh.com, and today is week 3 of the She's Crafty mini paper pad class with a sketch, and I have a fun layout featuring my son and my husband. So here are the photos that I'll be using, and I've just printed 4 on two 4x6 pieces, and then here is a look at the kit that I created, and I will leave a link down below to that kit process if you want to watch it. Now you can see that this paper is pretty girly, and then I have some base pages that also are kind of girly, but I'm going to use the side without the flowers. Now I've also pulled a couple of other embellishments from my stash, as well as these chipboard letters that I'm hoping to use for my title. So I'm just going to prepare these pieces of 12 by 12 papers by cutting off the zip strips and maybe use those zip strips. Here's a look at the sketch, and as you can tell, they have a whole lot of little squares. Now the sketch does call for 1.5-inch squares, but I'm going to be cutting all my papers into 2-inch squares. So I'm going to skip over the majority of this process. Again, you can see they're just cut into 2-inch squares. And then this piece of paper from my mini paper pad, I definitely want to cut some of these pieces out and use them either instead of the square or as embellishments. So I'm just choosing which ones I want to do, and then again I'm just going to fussy cut those out, and then the ones that have a pattern I'm just going to go around that pattern, leaving a small edge. So I've got all that done, and now I'm going to start laying everything out. Now I do have the sketch over to the left, constantly referring to it to try and keep pretty much in line with the sketch. And then I am right here just trying to figure out where I want my colored papers to go. Now I do want to separate those blocks of color as much as possible. And then I am going to just kind of lay down, kind of straighten everything up. Now I do have to kind of elongate those squares just a tad, but I end up liking how it looks. Now, even though the majority of the center of these squares will be covered up with my photo, I think it's important, since I really don't know where my photo is going to go yet, I think it's important to figure out where all these are going to go and tape them all down. So anytime I am doing any sort of grid that needs to be straight, I always glue one down, and then I pull out my T-ruler and my Versamat, and then I just line the squares up, and that T-ruler makes it super easy to do that. Now I am using tape adhesive just to kind of do this really quick, and then also that liquid adhesive, because there are so many squares, it would really curl up my base page. And since my base page is a pattern paper, not a true heavy cardstock, I didn't want that to happen. So as you can see here, this process, even though I've sped it up, this process does go by rather quickly. So now I'm going to move my T-ruler over to that right edge, and I will use that to line up this last row of squares. So I've got that pretty much down, and I'm just going to kind of press all those really hard to make sure that they're secure. And then I'm going to pull out that paper pad again and try to find some pieces that I can use as photo mats. So I'm just trying to decide here. I do like that dark blue, but I'm going to have to trim my photos just a little bit. So I'm taking 1/4 of an inch off the short side as well as the long side. And then I'm going to try those again. And then I end up thinking that I really want a white background. So I'm going to pull out some white daisy cardstock and attach those photos to that, and then trim them down with my trimmer. Now, the edge on this is tiny. I don't even think it's a 1/16 of an inch, but it does match that white edge in between the two photos that actually are printed onto the photo itself. So I'm liking how that's going to go. So I'm going to glue these down. And let me know if you notice what I did. Now, these photos are a sequence of events, but I glued them down wrong. I'll catch that here in a second and undo them. Now, the sketch does have some paint splatter in the top left and bottom, or top right and bottom left. So I pulled out a shimmer brush, and I hope you can see the shimmer on this layout. I'll show you here in a second, but you definitely can see it in the still photos at the end of the video. And this paint splatter with the shimmer brush is really my favorite thing to do. It just adds so much kind of shimmer and shine, and it does have that paint splatter look. So I've glued those down. Now I am going to take an adhesive foam sheet just to make sure that that entire photo piece is kind of pop dotted off of the layout. And then now I'm going to start playing with all the embellishments. Now I am going to add my little journaling strip to the right out of this gray paper, and that's just the back side to one of those mini paper pad pattern sheets. And then I'm also wanting to pull some of that red in as well. Now the red stripe that you see on those tiny little squares, that's actually a close to my heart paper. But I love how that this paper pad also had that red, and it almost matched perfectly. So I was glad that I could pull that solid red into this layout. Now here's where I realized that the sequence of photos I had glued on opposite. So I've changed that up. And then again, I'm just going to kind of play with the placement of the embellishments and go ahead and start gluing down that journaling spot as well as my big photo. Now I did leave some room around the photo with no adhesive, just in case I want to tuck some of those embellishments in behind those photos. So these little cork shapes, I originally pulled this fall one out because these photos were taken during a Thanksgiving break. I will end up changing that out. And then I decided to just grab a tray and just dump everything out. So right here, I am just going through each one of these little embellishments and pulling the ones and kind of grouping them with common interest and grouping those that I think I might want to use. Now, I did find some numbers, and so I am pulling a 1, a 2, and a 4. And then for some reason, this paper pack or this little embellishment pack did not have a 3. I triple checked, quadruple checked. I have no idea where that 3 went. I've never used it. So the only thing I can guess is either it wasn't included or it fell out. But this layout's just going to have to do without it. So I'm liking that these numbers do kind of represent the order of the photos. And then I'm going to pull out the little pack that I created when I created this kit. They have some wonderful kind of subtitles and sentiments that I've pulled out, thinking that I might want to use. So originally I was going to like that little fox at the bottom left, but then I found this little title that I thought would go perfectly over that fox down at that bottom left. Now this little file tab says Thursday, which this was a Thursday, and here is where I swap out that camera for the fall cork shape. And then I'm just going to start playing with these, as well as here you see I'm going through the numbers again, trying to find that 3. And then I am just going to start really right here is where I'm pretty happy with everything. So I'm going to start gluing everything down. So I am going to just start with that 2 up at the top right corner and then do that heart that says love. And then go ahead and finish off these numbers. Now, I love that little tag with the camera, and then I'm loving to cover up that fox with life is better with a smile sentiment. And that little clipboard, I am going to add just a little bit of journaling, and then, of course, that today sticker. Now, I am going to add some yellow stickers from this little sticker sheet over to the right. And I'm just loving all of the little sentiments that this little sticker sheet has. Now, that is from Close to My Heart, and it was part of the collection with that red striped paper. So as far as these hearts, I'm just trying to separate them. Now there are several colors, so I'm trying to make sure that the colors are really contrast to the pieces of paper that they're glued down on, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to find some other little stickers up at the top right, and these say, "This is it and never forget." So at the bottom right, now this sticker it allows you to circle the month and the day, which I thought would be perfect. And then this little pink piece is one of those that I cut from that patterned mini pad. And it says rich in laughter because when I look at these photos, I can just hear our middle son's laughter. He has such a contagious laugh. And of course, anytime he is bothering his daddy, he laughs even more. Now, as far as this layout goes, this is probably the most embellishments that I've ever used on a layout. Now, it does look crowded here in the photo, but surprisingly, in real life, it doesn't look that crowded. I was surprised. It seems like everything has a spot and everything went exactly where it was supposed to go. Now, this little bracket frame up at the top left, I know something needs to go there, but I really didn't want to use a circle. So I'd pulled out some other embellishments, but I go with the circle that says, "This is it." And that is pretty much the layout. Now, here you can see the still shots. I was thinking that you could see that splatter and that sparkle, but it seems like you can't here, so you'll have to check out my Instagram. Now, don't forget that this is part of a YouTube hop, so to speak. So I am joining Shannon in her She's Crafty mini paper pad class, and I'll leave all the links to the girls that are playing down below so you can go check them out.